If you're elected, can you commit to using empty homes in Greater Manchester to house the homeless? And how will you implement support services to complement this?
Yes is the answer to that. So we've set up something called an ethical lettings agency. So our housing providers have set up a new organisation called Let Us, i.e. let us rent out your property. So properties that are empty, that are private rented, we are working with landlords to bring them under the control of Let Us, which is our agency that's run by our current housing providers. And we're trying to run that on a housing first model, which is house plus support, as you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So these are empty homes that we're trying to bring under the control of Let Us. And by doing that, expand housing first. But the key bit here is, just to finish on this point, is what we're trying to do through doing that is then give a route for people who are in a bed every night. Because one of the problems with a bed every night is people can become stuck there and they can't move on to the next level. So we're trying to knit all of these things together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've got a big objective to increase the number of properties under the control of Let Us. It's currently about 200, but we want a lot more. So that is about identifying private rented properties that are empty, providing funding to renovate them, and then bring them into the social rented stock, basically.
Hi, Georgia. Do you know, one of the big issues that I've talked about quite a lot on a number of different issues is the empty housing across Greater Manchester. It's something that I'm aware that we have, and it's something that when we're talking about other issues other than just homelessness and around building on greenbelt land and developing new properties, these are all really key things that we need to keep coming back to, the empty properties. And I think there is a lot more we could be doing with those. And absolutely, looking at housing people in them that require housing is a really key issue. And I think what we need to recognise, or I need to recognise in saying that, is the fact that there are people who are homeless, and will count on those figures, who actually don't have any wider issues. They just have had some problem that has got them into a position where they're homeless. That could be debt, it could be loss of jobs, it could be illness, and actually just housing them will solve those problems. And they are the people that we should absolutely be looking to put into empty houses and to make those usable and habitable. And not just so that those individuals are housed, but I don't like the idea of empty housing streets where we then are looking at antisocial behaviour, maybe crime, maybe areas of where, no-go areas that people then become afraid to go into. I don't think that's good for society and for our city and for our city region. I think we need to have those areas vibrant and filled with communities, and I think that's something we can do. I know from a friend of mine who is homeless and has been street homeless for a very large number of years, who's got various problems with addiction and what have you. He has been housed previously and hasn't been able to retain and stay in that property because he hasn't had the support that's needed. So I don't think it's something we can solve just by saying there's 20 homeless people, there's 20 empty houses, let's put them all in there. I think what we need to do is say there's these number of houses, there's these number of people, what do we then put in to support putting them into houses? So I think that's a much wider issue that we can build on, that follows on a bit from the questions that Winnie was asking. Could you repeat the second part of your question?
The second part is how you implement support services to complement this.
Sorry, so I'd started to touch on that. So that is where I said about what support we need. So my friend Steve, who was homeless, street homeless for a very long time, he was unable to access sensible drug rehabilitation schemes, which meant that it then knocked on into his ability to apply for work, to sign on for to get universal credit and the housing benefits, which means he wasn't paying rent, and it would spiral into this situation where he would be put into properties and then leave. So I think that is what we need to be looking at, is the sort of the distinction between people who happen to be homeless and people who are homeless because there are wider issues that need support and need backup. And I think that if we are then putting those sorts of services in place to say, if you have got drug problems, what can we do? Where can we send you? Can you go to, can we get you in through a rehabilitation scheme? Can we give you job coaches? Can we get you support to just re-enter society? Because actually that, if you've been street homeless for a very, very long time, it's very, very difficult to then go into a house and a community and neighbours and paying gas bills and those sorts of just everyday mundane issues. And so sometimes just enabling and empowering people to understand and to be able to cope in those ways is something that's a really easy fix to help. So I think those are the wider issues, is looking at what are the specific problems and how can we encourage and empower people to have being placed into housing and being rehomed and being taken out of off the streets or out of a homelessness situation to actually retain their home and to move forward and to succeed. So those would be the sorts of things I would be looking at.
That's actually part of a wider housing debate. There are something like 12,000 empty homes across Greater Manchester. They need to be brought into use, and councils need to use the powers they already have. The mayor should be pressurising the council leads, the leaders of all the councils, all 10 councils across Greater Manchester, in order to bring those houses back into use. In Trafford, our Liberal Democrat team put forward a motion that was accepted by council to actually build the council tax escalator on second homes and owned empty houses. So it will eventually cost more to keep that home empty than to actually have someone renting it. And I think that's something that just needs rolled out across Greater Manchester.
So if you were to become mayor, you would commit to using empty homes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I shrug my shoulders when I say that, because it's a no-brainer. We should be using these empty homes, and I'll repeat what I actually said to when I spoke to Manchester Friends of the Earth. I won't reject an idea just because I didn't come up with it. And the fact with this is we already have the powers in place to do this, to get those empty houses in use. We just need to put pressure on our council leaders to actually use the powers they've got to bring those houses into use.
And just quickly, coming back to the second part of the question, how will you implement support services to complement using empty homes?
So with the support services, it goes back to what I was talking about, actually having those community groups, those hub groups of social workers, police officers, head teachers, mental health nurses, community health nurses, actually working together to house people in empty homes or bring homes into use and use them to house our homeless or families in need of a home. And actually finding that need within those communities. So someone that turns up is going to be homeless, say in Stockport, should hopefully find a home in Stockport. We shouldn't have to move someone right across the other side of Greater Manchester just to give them a home. And having more local community-based approach to services will hopefully allow us to keep people in the communities that they're aware of and they're happy in and they're aware, they know, unless for some other reason it's better for them to move on to another area.